about how my ex-boyfriend accused me of cheating on an all-girls trip. So a little background information, I was 14 or 15 around the time, and it was the summer of my freshman year. So within the last few weeks of my 8th grade year, one of the more popular boys asked me out, and we're gonna call him Carson. I wasn't like super popular at the school, but I was like a medium maybe. But I was raised in a super strict household, where the only phone that I pretty much had was one that was able to call 911 and my parents. And I especially was not allowed to be talking to boys. So Carson had the great idea of giving me his old phone, and throughout the summer I would text him on there. Well, I started realizing him getting really toxic. Anytime that he would see my Snapchat location change, he would be like, "Where are you going? Why didn't you tell me you were going here?" So I started distancing myself a little bit from him. Also because our relationship was just moving way too fast. Within the first month of us dating, he was talking about wanting to marry me. So like I said, I started distancing myself from him because he became too attached and was just way too toxic. Well, I was also in a lot of clubs in school, and a few of them would require me to go on trips. Well, the one that I went on was an all-girls trip, and before I left, I texted Carson letting him know that I wouldn't have my phone all week. Well, on the last night of my trip, there was a girls and boys dance. There was like a group of boys from a different school that we were meeting up with, and I tried staying back at the cabin, but they wouldn't let me. So we started doing dances that required partners, so I was pretty much forced to dance with one of the boys. Well, when I came back home, I got 100 texts from Carson calling me a bunch of nasty names, and you can probably guess them. And somebody got a picture of me dancing with one of the boys, and Carson sent it to me and said, "We're done." So after that, I just ignored him. And then literally that night at 1 a.m., he was texting me saying, "I miss you, please come back to me." So like I said, I received over 100 messages from him. He got a picture of me dancing with one of the boys and said, "We're done." And then at 1 in the morning, he's like, "I miss you so much, please don't leave me, like I've been doing so bad while you were gone." So of course I didn't accept his apology, and I just blocked him on all my social media. And the next day I wake up to messages on my Instagram, my Snapchat, my Facebook. Like, who even uses that? Unless you're talking to family. Well, then Carson decides to tell everybody at my school about how I'm a lying, cheating scumbag. And now, 3 years later, no good guy from my school wants to date me. So now whenever I'm talking to a guy, I have to make sure that they're not affiliated with Carson in any way. But low-key, I had a really good glow-up, so all the hot boys want to talk to me now. And Carson's pretty much still a scumbag.
I got sent to the frickin' principal's office today. So my day started off horrible. I ended up having to sleep on my floor last night because my dog peed all over my bed and it seeped down into my mattress. So I had to sleep on my floor, as you can tell. Well then, I wake up this morning and I check the time. It's 6:30 in the morning. I leave for school at 6:30 and I had just woken up. So I ended up being 2 hours late to school. Yeah! So I was like, okay, my day couldn't get much worse. Could it? Well, it did. It got a lot frickin' worse. It's the end of the day. I'm getting ready to frickin' go home. I have one class left. But in this class, I got all of my work done up until October 13th. So I literally have no assignments to do. So before my last class starts, I go up to my teacher and I'm like, "Hey, do you think I could go down to the library to get a book? I did all my assignments for your class, yada yada." She's like, "Yeah, that's fine." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I start heading down to the library. I'm walking down there and I see my friend walking the opposite way. And she's like, "Hey, Kayla, they're not letting anybody go to the library." And I'm like, what the heck? So she's like, "Yeah, I'll talk to you about it. Just come with me to fill up my water bottle." So we go to the lunchroom. That's literally down the hallway from the library. We fill up her water bottle and she's telling me about how they didn't let her in the library, whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm still gonna try to get in there. So I'm literally walking to the library on my way. And a little teacher stops me in the hallway. And she's like, "Excuse me, where are you going?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to the library." And she's like, "Oh, can I see your hall pass?" And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't get one. Like, I left before my class even started. I already asked my teacher, like, it's okay." Hoping that she would hop off and mind her business. But no, she didn't mind her business. Instead, she's like, "Okay, well, I know you're skipping class, so let's take you down to the office." Oh, lovely. So she takes me and my friend down to the office, and we walk in there, and this teacher starts acting like she did something. She walks into the office, and she's like, "I caught these 2 young ladies right here skipping class. You could take care of them," and walks out. Girl, bye. So one of the office ladies is like, "Were you skipping?" And I'm like, "No, I was going to the library. I need a book. I have a book report in 10 days. Like, I need to get a book to read." She didn't believe me. Told me that she knew I was skipping, even though I was going to the library. So she's like, okay, you could just sit in the office till the end of the day and just don't do it again. So I'm like, bada bing, bada boom, we're not gonna get in trouble for skipping class, even though we weren't skipping class, whatever. So I sit in the office for like 30 minutes with my friend, and it is 2 minutes before the bell rings and it's time to go home, when all of a sudden the principal comes out of the office. And he looks at the office ladies and he's like, do we have these 2 young ladies' names? And the office ladies are like, yep, we got them here. He's like, okay, send them over to me and I'll take care of them tomorrow. So now I'm gonna get detention tomorrow for going to the library. For trying to get a book. I'm going to get detention for trying to educate myself and get a book! And this is why I'm dropping out. JK, I'm not allowed to. LOL.
Get ready with me to go and get boba. I've had a really strange day, so let me tell you about it. I'm doing natural makeup for once, like actually natural, I'm not lying this time. So for the past 3 or 4 days, I had a really weird eye problem. There was like a bump on my eye, and every time I would blink or literally move my eye, it would hurt. So I went to this eye doctor, and he made me look so stupid. He was like, there's nothing wrong with your eye. And because I had the eye doctor, I left school at 11. And now it's literally 2:20, and I'm meant to finish school in 10 minutes. But since 11, I went out shopping with my mum, and I got a new coat. I'll show you in a minute. It's just basic. I don't actually know if I'm going out, though, because my friends aren't really replying, because they're in school. So if I don't go out, I'm just going to get unready and watch a movie. And I got Disney Plus now, so I'm going to watch Scream Queens. I've wanted to watch it for so long, ever since it came out, but I didn't know how. Yeah, so that was my shit story time done. Also, I've got another story time. This is from yesterday. I'm not going to say what lesson it is in case somebody shows them this, but I was literally sitting down in class and this kid asked me, are you Asian? And then, like, to be funny, he starts saying ching chang chong, doing that with his eyes and saying, oh yeah, I forgot the stereotypical one. He said, do you eat your dog? Like, come on, that is the most basic insult. Like, at the time, I didn't really know what to do. I did like a sarcastic laugh. I was like, and then he kept trying to make me say, like, stuff in Thai, and I literally can't speak Thai. She have more troubles than her. My mum is just a bit more difficult, I guess. This is still not natural. I literally said at the start of this video that I was going to make this natural. I mean, it's not unnatural, it's just a bit too glamorous to say it's natural. Something more on a positive note, my Halloween costume came. I'm not going to show you yet until the day of Halloween, but it's black. Yeah, that's all I'm saying, and it's really small. I don't think I'm going to wear it out though, it's a bit too revealing, but I'll get some cute Instagram pictures in it. But this year I am doing 2 costumes, so yeah, only one of them's come. But the earrings to the first costume came. If you were on my live video like a week ago, you would have seen. I've got nothing else to do apart from eyelashes, so I'm going to come back when I'm done. I'm all ready to go, but my friend just texted me saying they want to go tomorrow. And then I went back and saw the messages they said on the group chat, and they said they want to go tomorrow. So I just misread it and got ready for no reason.
Shoplifters bringing their kids to steal is my biggest pet peeve. And one day I had this guy in the store with his maybe 4-year-old son. He went back to electronics and grabbed a piece of equipment that worked with the PlayStation. It was like $19 and some change. He then leaves the electronics department, goes over to sporting goods where he conceals the item into his pocket. I was training a new AP associate and I let her make the stop. He immediately gets in her face and starts yelling at her, but she doesn't back down or flinch. But when I walk up and start talking to him, he takes the bass out of his voice and starts to calm down. Just from his behavior of how he interacted with me versus my APA, let me know that he had a problem with female authority. But we get him and his son in the office, and he immediately gets on the phone and calls his wife. He's scared to death he's going to jail. At that moment, for $20, I wasn't going to send him to jail. But when the wife gets there, he starts berating her, blaming her for the reason he had to steal, because she wouldn't buy him this item for the PlayStation. Come to find out, this dude is not employed, and he hasn't been employed for some time. All of this information I got from their conversation while I was showing my trainee how to do the paperwork. He stands up and calls her a worthless bitch, and that's where I stepped in. But you gotta wait for part 2. So picking up where we left off, our shoplifter just stood up and got in his wife's face and called her a worthless bitch. That's where I stood up and told him to sit down and keep his mouth shut. He complied and sat down and told me he was sorry, that he was just stressed. My trainee also stood up and positioned herself between myself and the shoplifter. He didn't like this. This really pissed him off. He stands back up and gets in my trainee's face and asks her, what the fuck are you gonna do? I step up to him chest to chest and tell him to sit his broke, unemployed ass the fuck down and to keep his mouth shut. And if he got back up, I was going to ensure that he stayed sitting down. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not a badass. I don't claim to be. I've had my ass whooped plenty of times in my lifetime, but I am not afraid to take an ass whooping over something I believe in. Clearly, he was not willing to take an ass whooping because he sat back down and explained to me that he was unemployed because he had a disability. I explained to him that small dick energy is not a disability, and I got on my phone and I called PD. He starts freaking out again, saying he can't go to jail. PD arrives at the store and I explain to them what happened, and they run him and find out he has a warrant. But the best is still yet to come, and I'll tell you that in part 3. Again, picking up where we left off. PD gets there and puts him in handcuffs, and he is not happy about this one bit. Now that he's in the protective custody of law enforcement, he's getting big and bad with me. He's cussing me, my trainee, his wife. And mind you, all of this transpired in front of his 4-year-old son, who was clearly distraught over it all and didn't understand what was going on. When he realizes the PD found out about his warrant and that he was going to jail potentially for the entire weekend, he begins to struggle in his handcuffs trying to get away from law enforcement. And while doing so, bumps into his 4-year-old son who was coming up to give him a hug and knocks the boy into the chairs in our office. Don't worry, the boy was fine. When they get him outside and into the police cruiser, he's crying regretfully. But he wasn't crying because he just publicly disrespected his wife and harmed his 4-year-old son. Nor was he crying because he just got caught making a bad decision. He was crying because he was going to miss the release of a new game on PlayStation that he had planned to play all weekend. And now he wasn't going to. When I tell you he was a special kind of a piece of shit, that's an understatement. And his ass ended up staying in jail for 7 days. If you like this story, smash the plus.
So me and my ex-boyfriend and my brother, we go to a work event together, right? My younger brother was around 17, 16 years old. So we start driving to the event and it's an hour away. We get there and we don't know where the location is at. They had given us the wrong location. So at the end of the day, we didn't get there and we had to drive back. So we're on the freeway and my brother's in the back and I'm on the passenger seat and he is driving my car. For some weird reason, he would never drive his car. So I touched his face and he got very upset. He started screaming at me and he's telling me that I could make him crash and all this and that. And I was like, okay, like that's true. Like, I'm sorry, you know? And around this time, it's already 11 and 12 at night. And this guy just kept on screaming at me. And I'm like, dude, like chill. I have my brother in the back. Please have some respect. And he just wouldn't stop. I was like, this man isn't even my father to be screaming at me this way. And I was not going to take that disrespect. Like for part 2. My ex-boyfriend screaming at me non-stop, and I have my brother in the back. And to be honest, it was very normalized in our relationship to scream at each other. But in this situation, I did have my little brother in the back, so I didn't want him screaming at me. So I keep on telling him to stop, and he doesn't stop, so I tell him, I'm like, you know what? If you're gonna be screaming at me, I don't want you driving my car. I don't want you inside. And he gets upset, and he's like, oh, really? It's like that? And I'm like, hell yeah, it's like that. So he pulls to the side of the freeway and he gets off the car. And he was always very petty. He probably thought that I was going to be like, no, don't leave, don't leave. But I was like, you know what? I'm not tolerating this. So I go from the passenger seat to the driver's seat and I just leave. He can easily get himself an Uber or call his mom. So I drove off, and honestly, now that I'm old, I do not tolerate that type of disrespect. Absolutely not. Not today, Satan.
You ever just have a random thought pop into your head and think, where did that come from? Well, I have a story for you. So we lived in rural New South Wales, that's where I grew up, and my grandma lived across the road. You know, we were very close. She herself was a born and bred country girl, and you know, always from the Hunter Valley in New South Wales. Anyway, she had a way with words. So as most kids do, you know, you pick up on the words and sayings that people say. You know, I bet there's things that you say that your grandparents or your parents used to say that you know, as soon as it comes out of your mouth, you're like, oh my God, that was such and such. You know what I mean? So we weren't really allowed to swear much when we grew up, and I think most people were probably like that. But one of the things that used to always get said was that if something was broken, that, it's had the dick. And that was a perfectly acceptable thing for, you know, a young child to say, because that's what, you know, that's how we described that things were broken, that it had had the dick. So fast forward a few years and I'm 21 and I've moved to Queensland and I'm working in a corporate office in Brisbane. I was accounts payable, so, you know, data entry, you know, all that fun stuff, yeah? Youngest one by probably 15 years. You know, there was me and I think 2 others that all were from New South Wales originally. So state of origin was fun, you know, we'd stir them all up. Especially when the Blues had a really good run, you know what I mean? So I was kind of known as like a bit of a loudmouth, you know what I mean? Like they, you know, I think everyone liked me. If they didn't really show it. But, you know, pretty much how I am now is exactly what I was like then. So on this one particular day, it was when I realised how much of a country upbringing I'd had. So I'm just going to set the scene. Little corner cubicle, you know, all my photos and all my shit up on the walls. Just, you know, working away, minding my own business. Anywho, the computer behind me had stopped working and there was some sort of issue, and I feel like it was, from memory, it was starting to like have a smoky smell to it, yeah? So anyway, because there's a smoky smell, next thing there's the CFO, there's my manager, there's like, you know, all these bigwigs come out to find out what the fuck this smell was. And so then I spin around on my little fucking chair, and so do all these fucking bigwigs at this company. Oh, it's had the dick. The CFO looks over at me and she says, I'm sorry, what? So two of the other blokes are standing there and they're laughing and she's looking all confused. And I said, haven't you heard that saying before? And she says, no. It was in that moment. It was in this moment, friends, that I've realised that my darling sweet grandmother had been telling me for years that when stuff had the dick, it literally meant that it was fucked. And that was the day that a young girl from rural New South Wales educated her corporate finance department.
Hi guys, not to gatekeep the dating men experience, but it just feels like I have you all beat with the best dating story of all time, so buckle up. So I'm a cute San Francisco bitch, and I go to the farmer's market every week. And one week I was buying my loaf of bread, and the little bread baker man asked me on a date, and I was like, this is sick, I'm stoked. We have a little beach picnic, I'm super cute. I bring a little picnic basket full of tea and farmer's market fruit and like some cookies, and I rolled some little, we're having a blast, like a great date. And he goes, do you eat food? What? So I was like, yeah, I eat food. You just watched me eat like 8 figs. And he was like, well, I live really close. Let me make you dinner. I was like, yeah, okay. I feel like I trust you. I'll go to your house. Turns out he lives in the nicest house I've ever been in. And I grew up in suburbia, like I've seen a nice house. This is a nice house in San Francisco. Man's is loaded. So this is when I like kind of start to panic. We sort of start fooling around. And then I was like, can we take a little break? I want to drink some tea. I'm getting in my head. Totally normal. Then as we're sitting on his little couch drinking our little tea, he says, now is a great time for me to tell you about a strange sexual habit I have. This guy doesn't let himself come. Ever. It's not like, I take Lexapro. It can be hard sometimes. No. He doesn't let himself. I was like, okay, you smoke a lot of, I'd think that maybe you would like that, but that's okay. And then he goes, I don't want you to feel like I led you astray, but I don't really eat. What? So I was like, I did ballet for many years of my life. Like, do you want to talk? No. He says, no, it's not that. It's when I'm hungry, I feel like I have more space for compassion. What? I don't know about y'all, but I turn into a hangry bitch. Like, there's no way, okay? But I was like, I came over here for dinner. I'm getting hungry. Like, do you have anything I can eat? He gets a jar of almond butter, hands it to me and says, it's just like ice cream. No, it's fucking not. But at this point, I'm like trying to like get some of the tension to go away. So I make a joke about how he doesn't come. At this point, he's cutting a peach. He turns knife in hand and says that was objectively offensive. So at this point, I'm like, I'm absolutely fucked. Like, I'm scared, right? And we like try to have a civil conversation about how I hurt his feelings, and he just like doesn't make me feel like I can let go of it. And I am so anxious at this point. I start crying in this man's kitchen. So not only does this man not come, he doesn't eat. He's a bread baker who doesn't eat his own bread, and he only calls Schweed cannabis. Like, made fun of me for calling it weed. He also has a stack of vinyl, and when I walked in, I was like, hey, can I put something on? Because, like, that's a hot girl move. Like, that's what I do at my house. No. He says, no. Why do you have it if you don't want to play it, Anyways, I was like, I want to go. I asked him to walk me to my car. He says no. I was like, okay, this is the weirdest date of my life. I got home. I cried. Literally, like, told my friends that I ruined this date. Like, I was like, he was so cool, and I ruined it. He also texted me a week later and told me he doesn't want me in his life because I won't let him be an authentic version of himself, so... Abolish.
Am I the asshole for not accepting my sister's relationship with my ex despite her having cancer as a teenager? My 25 female father married my stepsister's 23 female mother when I was 4 and she was 3. We've lived together most of our lives and we are a family. She and I were extremely close. She developed cancer when she was 14 and was sick for about 2 years. She's since made a full recovery. During that time, my parents became understandably overprotective. They also asked a lot of me. I quit my extracurricular activities so I could get a job. The money went towards her medical bills, and so I could drive her to appointments. I didn't go to dances, and any fun activities I did needed to include her. I did almost all of this willingly, the exception being having to quit my high school volleyball team. I did throw a bit of a tantrum about that, but was swiftly punished. And I think having one emotional breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. Anyhow, I go to college and meet my ex. Let's call him Ben, when I'm a junior. We fall in love, blah, blah, blah. He and I move in together when we graduate. So we've been living together for about 3 years. We were serious until July when I walked into my bedroom and saw him screwing my sister. I broke it off. Tears were shed. He moved out, etc. My sister apologized at first, but then backed off. I thought she was giving me space, but last week she called and asked if we could meet up. She then told me that she and Ben were in love and were just telling me as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Distraught, I left her in the restaurant by herself and did not pay my portion of the bill. She later Venmo'd me asking me for the money. She told my parents, who then called me into their house, telling me how disappointed in me they are for not supporting my sister's relationship with Ben. They brought up the fact that because she had cancer as a teenager, she never learned proper social etiquette and has a hard time meeting people. I don't buy this, in part because I've seen her socialize just fine. And since we spent a good chunk of the time she was sick together, that would also mean that I should have bad social skills as well, by that logic. They then told me that if I don't accept my sister and Ben's relationship, they may have to go no contact with me. I reminded them that I'm also their daughter and they should understand my point of view, but they are adamant that this is about me being jealous of her. For the record, I'm not jealous of her. I'm not upset that Ben picked her over me. I'm sad about the end of the relationship and I do feel betrayed. But Lord knows that I don't want to be with a cheater. What I'm upset about is the fact that my sister chose Ben over me, that she slept with Ben knowing he and I were in a long-term committed relationship and continues to be with him knowing how much it hurts me. No one in my immediate family is talking to me, and I'm getting messages from aunts and uncles and cousins telling me that I'm an asshole and a selfish bee. So, am I the asshole for not accepting my sister's relationship with my ex despite her having cancer as a teenager? Am I the asshole for demanding my widowed sister-in-law and her kids to leave after she put a lock on the bathroom door and denied my daughter access to it? I am a father of a 16-year-old daughter. I own a one-bathroom, middle-sized house where me, my wife, her widowed sister, and her 2 kids, 13 and 16, live. My daughter had issues with her mother and requested to live with me permanently. I had the legal stuff finalized and my daughter moved in with us about a month ago. She and her stepmom get along. So far, everything was going well. My daughter got her period a few days ago. Nothing new, nothing strange, except my sister-in-law came to me complaining about my daughter leaving used pads in the bathroom, causing her sons to see them. I asked where exactly, and she said in the trash can. I laughed in her face, asking if she thought this was abnormal or strange. She got upset that I didn't understand her point and wanted me to listen carefully as she explained that her boys are pretty young and should not be subjected to witness stuff like that. I said, I'll see what I can do. I talked to my daughter and made sure she wasn't just leaving her used pads in full display inside the trash can. Turns out she wraps them in toilet paper, which is enough, in my opinion. I told my sister-in-law there was no problem then, and she should quit being too sensitive over her boys. She got mad, saying I was dismissing her concerns and reminded me her oldest has a blood phobia and my daughter even though doing it unintentionally keeps leaving her pads exposed. I welcomed any ideas to fix this, and she suggested my daughter throw her used pads outside the house. I stopped arguing at the point because of how ridiculous she was being. She then threatened me to change the bathroom door lock if I didn't do something, but I laughed her off. My daughter called me the next day after getting back from school saying her step-aunt refused to let her use the bathroom and she was keeping it locked. She had used her new friend's bathroom, but called to...
So this morning I dropped out of high school. I'm joking! I did not drop out of school. Stay in school. But I did stop doing in-person learning. I'm no longer attending public school. And before I tell you guys why, trigger warning. I'm just gonna put a trigger warning. This video might be a little deep. So obviously I have a quite strong presence online. And because of that, everybody in my town, kind of knows who I am. And I thought that would be a good thing before school started. I was kind of excited to go back to school. I was thinking a lot of people were gonna like me, want to be my friend. Because I've never been popular. I've never had that many friends. So I'm over here thinking when I start my junior year, everybody's gonna want to be my friend. I'm gonna be so popular. And I was just so freaking excited. But that was not the case. Literally on the third day of school, I nearly got suspended for getting into a fight. And then this girl's friends were like texting me saying they were gonna jump me when I went back to school. So I started to get a little scared for my safety. And that caused me to get really bad anxiety. I was like, you know what? I gotta go to school. You gotta do it. So I kept going to school and things just slowly started to get worse. I stopped eating. Every time I would eat, I would get nauseous and throw up. I couldn't eat breakfast. I couldn't eat lunch. And I slowly stopped doing those things to the point where I had one bowl of mac and cheese every day because I literally could not eat anything. And then I started to get anxiety attacks in the hallways. In class, I would start shaking like this. I couldn't feel my body. I couldn't breathe. And I didn't really realize the effects of this until yesterday. Yesterday, I wore skinny jeans and a hoodie to school. And I walked to my first class and everybody's looking at my legs. And every time I'm walking in the hallway, I just see people staring at my legs. And I'm like, that's a little weird. So I go to the bathroom and I look in the mirror and I realize that I had lost a lot of weight. My legs looked like toothpicks and I literally just started crying. I did not realize the effects that the anxiety had on my body, the toll it had. So I end up going home early and I start talking to my dad and I'm sitting there crying and I'm like, Dad, I don't feel like myself anymore. My whole life I've been a mentally stable person. I've never had depression. I've never had anxiety, but now I'm having anxiety like never before. I can't eat anymore. And my dad was like, yeah, this is an issue. So he offered the idea of doing online school. And I was like, I have to. I can't risk my mental health for public school. So today, me and my mom went to my high school and we went into the office and we talked with some of the higher ups, the guidance counselors, all those people. And I got signed up for virtual school. I sat down in their office and I told them the situation and they were like, yeah, you're gonna have to do virtual school, honey. You're not coming back here. So now I'm just waiting for a response from the head of the online school thing, waiting for them to give me the yay, okay, you can join. And then, I'm done with public school. So it's kind of sad because, I don't really get to experience high school. But for my mental health and physical health, I'm willing to do anything because those are more important than doing public school, especially when there's the option of doing it from home. I already feel the anxiety going away because I know I don't have to go back to public school. So yeah, that's what happened.
I'm 49 and my wife Kelly is 46. We've been together for almost 20 years. We each travel frequently for long periods of time for work and family, so several years ago we decided to open up our marriage. This was originally her idea and I wasn't sure how it would go, but it's been great. It takes the pressure away from the time that we do get to spend together between travels. It took about 2 years to completely figure out the rules that work best for us, but it's been working perfectly ever since. These rules include that we're not required to tell each other who we're sleeping with unless we specifically ask, and we cannot tell each other who they can and cannot sleep with. We can discuss it, but in the end it's only up to the partner involved. Last year, I started to become close with one of our neighbors, Sasha, who's 19. We started walking my dog together, going running together, watching TV together, and eventually doing more. We still haven't slept together because she wants to take things slow, which I'm alright with. Kelly's noticed that Sasha and I have gotten close, but it wasn't until last week when she found the receipts from gifts I'd bought for Sasha that she straight up asked whether or not we were together. Following the rules we'd set up, I said yes. Kelly got incredibly mad and started yelling at me about how Sasha was too young, even though nothing even started between us before she was 18. She ended up insulting me and calling me names, and I removed myself from the situation so she could calm down. Later, we had a calmer discussion about it. She told me to stop seeing Sasha. I reminded her of our rule and brought up the recent example of when I followed the rule even though I didn't like it. Last winter, one of Kelly's coworkers made a slightly rude comment to me in passing that prompted me to ask Kelly if she was sleeping with him. She said she was, and when I asked her to stop, she said no, and I accepted it because that was the rule. I don't see how this is any different. Sasha is a consenting adult and has been for our entire relationship. I get that 19 is young and I probably wouldn't just go out and pursue some random 19-year-olds, but Sasha has lived next door for 10 plus years, so there was already a very deep level of trust between us. Then Kelly threatened to tell Sasha's mother about us, which I felt crossed the line. I told her that it was extremely inappropriate to take revenge on Sasha just because she's jealous of her. That set Kelly off again, and after yelling at me some more and storming off, she's been giving me the cold shoulder all week. I love Kelly and want to make things work, but this is getting ridiculous. I see that this has struck a nerve, but we set those rules together and they've been working for us for years. I don't see why suddenly she's unhappy with them. How do I pacify Kelly so that she won't tell Sasha's mother about us while still upholding the rules that we...